Chapter 30. Doubt. Like a passage to the underworld, a vast vortex hung upside down in the sky, pitch black and unfathomable, as if the terrifying mouth of the 9 nether demons had opened to devour everything in the world. The fierce wind howled, swirling clouds were torn apart, thunder rumbled, and lightning flashed. Zhang Xiaofan flew in, the Zhuangking light of the flaming fire staff flickering conspicuously under the dark clouds. Lu Zueki watched Zhang Xiaofan's figure enveloped in the cyan light, her jade face pale. The divine sword's mastery over thunder was the supreme technique in Taoist immortal arts, using the body of a mortal to unleash the might of heaven and earth. One could imagine the immense pressure Lu Zueki's body was under at this moment. Tianyin was an unparalleled divine weapon, originally intended to be their perfect blade for performing the divine sword's mastery over thunder. However, compared to it, Lu Zueki's own cultivation in Taoist arts was lacking at this moment. She only felt an infinite surge of power rushing toward her body within the dark clouds of the sky. Although there seemed to be no visible change to outsiders, her blood and Qi were churning as if about to burst from the overwhelming force. If it weren't for Tianyin continuously absorbing this surging force, Lu Zueki might have collapsed long ago. As the wind howled and thunder roared, she stood in midair, feeling as if she were a powerless blade of grass in the wind. In the next moment, she remembered her master Shu Yu's words when she passed on this technique to her. Zueki, your aptitude is exceptional, the best I've ever seen in my life, but this technique's power is too great, and the backlash is equally overwhelming. Your cultivation is still shallow, although you can barely grasp it. You must never use it lightly to avoid catastrophic consequences. Boom. A thunderous explosion, as if it came from the sky above Mount Heaven Piercer, made everyone feel the ground tremble slightly, as if the ancient thunder god had been awakened and was roaring in fury. At that moment, everyone's faces changed. Zhang Xiaofan was only to jump away from Lu Zueki at this moment. Seeing this momentum, anyone could tell that once Lu Zueki completed her spell casting, he would likely be annihilated. But then, his whole body suddenly tightened, as if hitting a soft wall, stopping abruptly. In that moment, Zhang Xiaofan's face turned ashen. The divine sword's mastery over thunder was one of the extraordinary techniques of Qingyun Sect's mountain protecting arts. During its casting, an invisible shield naturally formed around the caster through the divine weapon. Zhang Xiaofan couldn't move forward. The flaming fire staff's light grew stronger, but it couldn't advance any further. Perhaps in terms of spiritual power and momentum, Zhang Xiaofan's flaming fire staff was not inferior to Tianyin, but in terms of cultivation, there was a vast difference. He could only rely on his own spiritual power to unleash the might of the flaming fire staff, which was far inferior to Lu Zueki's unparalleled technique refined through the countless years of Qingyun Sect's ancestral teachings. But just at this moment of despair, as the huge vortex in the sky spun faster, thunder and lightning intensified, and the brilliance of Tianyin grew brighter. Right before the moment when this peerless immortal technique was about to be unleashed, Lu Zueki suddenly trembled. Her originally pale face instantly flushed red, and she spat out a mouthful of blood, forming a mist of blood in front of her. Tianyin's brilliance immediately flickered, seeming unstable. Lu Zueki clenched her silver teeth, closed her eyes, and concentrated all her mind and spirit on Tianyin. After a moment, Tianyin stabilized, shining even brighter than before, dazzling and incomparably radiant, making it impossible to look directly at. In the dark clouds, a loud noise resounded, and a bright light appeared at the deepest part of the huge vortex, where countless lightning converged, vaguely aiming at Tianyin and Lu Zueki's hand. However, in Lu Zueki's heart, there was a sense of despair, and amidst the howling wind, a sharp whistling sound was heard. She focused all her efforts on protecting Tianyin, but she was no longer able to care about the invisible shield beside her. Overjoyed, Zhang Xiaofan transformed with the flaming fire staff into a dark cyan-like column, streaking across the sky, heading towards the beautiful woman swaying in the wind. Is this the end? Is everything coming to an end here? Her mind suddenly calmed down, thinking faintly in that moment. In just that brief moment, the world was quiet, frozen, everything was fixed in place. Only she stood in the wind, her clothes fluttering, her black hair dancing, opening her eyes that were once closed, looking ahead at the approaching cyan light. That moment seemed eternal, Zhang Xiaofan saw her and her gaze. She stood alone in the wind and rain, facing the might of heaven and earth with such tranquility, yet her complexion was slightly pale, with a hint of sadness and a touch of panic in her eyes. The wind and rain held the desolate world, this beautiful woman, facing him quietly, whose gaze was that, so sad and so desolate, as if last night that person was hurt by love. That kind of pain, deep into the bone marrow, deep into the soul. Deep, deep. Is it you, the woman who loves someone else? Do you steadfastly think of him all your life? Zhang Xiaofan suddenly smiled, with a hint of sadness and despair in his heart, as if it were last night. The flaming fire staff merged into the brilliance of Tianyin. No one could see their figures anymore, nor could they see the brilliance of the flaming fire staff suddenly dimming. At this moment, there was a loud noise in the sky, and an immensely huge lightning bolt descended from the sky onto Tianyin. The entire world, the heavens full of gods and Buddhas, seemed to sing together at the same moment. The huge pillar of light refracted from Tianyin, carrying an ore of destruction, rushing towards Zhang Xiaofan. At the critical moment of life and death, the flaming fire staff rose into the air, blocking in front of its master. In the next moment, Zhang Xiaofan was engulfed by the light. For a long time, for a long time, for a long time, the dark clouds in the sky dispersed, and the light disappeared. People looked blankly at the sky, at the young man holding tightly onto a black flaming fire staff, like a stone worn down by countless tortures. Falling straight down, he didn't fall to the ground. Tia Bai appeared beneath him like a ghost, catching him. Only Tia Bai's face was solemn, his movements swift as he immediately pried open Zhang Xiaofan's unconscious mouth and took out a small bottle from his pocket, pouring out a yellow pill directly into Zhang Xiaofan's mouth. Regardless of the quantity, the pill dissolved upon contact with his mouth. Without a word, Tia Bai flew up, a crimson light immediately rising, carrying him away like the wind, without even looking back at the scene below, heading back towards the main peak of the bamboo peak. So are you and the others from the bamboo peak followed suit. At this moment, the pale-faced Lu's Weki descended, immediately surrounded by the ecstatic disciples of the bamboo peak. Despite being embraced by her senior sisters, she remained silent, lifting her head and staring blankly at the gradually disappearing crimson light in the sky, speechless. It was as if he had slept in the darkness for 1,000 years, yearning to awaken, but unable to open his eyes. In the boundless darkness, he walked alone, yet apart from the darkness, there seemed to be no path.